Namaste. Welcome to Championing Change podcast. Today we have a very special guest, very active, energetic, young ESG professional, Mr. Bez with us. Welcome, Bez.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
here.
thank you for being with us today. And I'm very sure our audience will be very inspired from your journey. I know, you have done your professional masters in social work, and then you have been in the sector for last 14, 15 years. You are also into NGO sector and also into CSR. So it will be very good to know about your journey. What made you to come into this, and what made you to continue this social impact sector?
So, first of all, I'm very privileged to be in this sector where I do good. And earlier I used to do good through NGOs. Now I'm doing good through corporates. So I'm very happy to be in this sector, and it has been a good journey so far. 13, 14 years now in this sector, and 2012 is where I graduated from my master's in social work, and I specialized in community development, and after that I worked with a few grassroots NGOs and also international NGO, World Vision, where I got to have an hands-on experience with the NGOs working on the ground. Plus, during my social work days also, I got an exposure to a wide range of social issues on the ground, from disability to AIDS to disaster management. I was there.
So multi-sector.
Yes, kind of got an exposure to health and all these sectors. In 2013, the CSR Act came into effect, and 2014 is when the company started implementing it. And fortunately, I joined the corporate back then in 2014. The initial stages, the CSR was not very clear. The rule was not very clear at that point of time. Though there was a handbook on CSR developed by PwC back then, and many companies were still struggling to understand how to implement the programs, the amendments, the act, the rules, the Schedule 7s and all that. I think it's almost a decade now, and companies are more familiar with the act, and also the NGOs are more familiar with the act now. They are prepared to work with the CSRs collaboratively to expand the impact. So it has been a very fruitful, wonderful journey so far, and I'm really excited for the days ahead.
So it's about 4 years in the NGO sector,
Yes.
working with the grassroots communities, and a little more than 10 years,
Yes.
as a CSR professional.
Yes.
So how did the CSR professional journey evolved?
When the CSR Act came into place, the companies knew that they have to spend 2% of their profits for a social cause. And they also know that they have to do it through recognized NGOs. There was some mandate that NGOs who has got CSR Form 1 only can implement the programs. Similarly, there are some government agencies who can implement the programs. And companies can also implement their programs themselves, their foundations. So it was all a very early stage at that point of time, where companies were still trying to understand how the CSR Act is working, and the MCA also was kind of monitoring the whole change over the past years, and there were frequent amendments that happened
Yes.
over the past 10 years now.
Can you explain a little bit, personally, how you have witnessed how the corporates are approaching towards CSR or the community development, the changes?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was earlier complaints driven, so that companies have to spend 2%. If you don't follow that, then we'll be under a complaints issue. So companies were more complaints driven. Now it is more impact driven, strategic focus is there in what they do.
Yeah. Why do you think that change came from obligation to impact responsibility?
I think when the companies are doing it, they felt that it shouldn't be done that way. Just activity driven is not sufficient. We have to do it more impact driven, more measurable in terms of the program's impact. That's how the whole process evolved. The companies are more aligning their business with the CSR strategy. So that, for example, Coca-Cola, they do programs on water, right? And their core material issue is water. So to be a water positive company, they have to uh, do some programs around watershed.
Watershed.
So they work with farmers in rural areas. They work with villages around the bottling plants, and they create programs that also aligns with their business in terms of hiring people locally, which is again part of ESG, as part of the S in ESG, and in terms of doing good to the local communities around.
Right.
It could be health, it could be any other holistic village development programs that focus on the villages around, because they are taking water from that area, they're sourcing material from that, their raw materials are from that area. So companies are now aligning their programs with the business. Business and CSR is kind of aligned now in this current trend.
Yeah, good. So you said, you have been working for last 10 years in the CSR, right? I think in 2-3 companies you have been responsible for CSR, working with a lot of implementing partners. Can you tell me one example where you have designed a program aiming for a good purpose, good impact, but did not achieve? And what could be that reason where you have designed some good thing, but did not really achieve the purpose?
So there was one program which focused on animal welfare. The SPCA Act was defunct for the district for about 40 years. And by bringing together various NGOs working in the animal welfare space and the collectorate, the collector involved, the SPCA Act was revived for the district. That was a positive thing. But we also thought of building a hospital, for a SPCA hospital, like the SPCA hospital in Pune. We thought of building a hospital in the south. And what happened was there were a lot of conflict between the NGOs itself, between the animal welfare NGOs, competition, conflicts. Though the companies were there to support their operations, they were willing to support their infrastructure. However, there were conflicts within the organizations that was challenging. The SPCA Act is in place. It also formed a trust, so the trust can start generating funds whenever they find somebody who is abusing animals or killing animals, dogs or cows, and that amount will go to the trust. So they can, if the hospital was built, they can sustain the operational cost by the trust fund. So there are also membership fees involved. So if you want to be a lifetime member in the SPCA trust, you can pay 5,000 rupees annually. So animal lovers would definitely love to be a lifetime member. Like that, the amount can be generated, it can be built as a trust fund, and it can support the operations of the hospital. So at that point of time, we didn't have the funds to, we had the funds to build the hospital. There were other corporates also to support in terms of operations, to manage at least for a year or two till the trust fund is developed. But if the NGOs were happy to work together, I think it would have been a good project where we have built a good hospital and companies come forward, government is also supportive, and the project is running, and NGOs are bringing together different cases, managing the whole running of the hospital, and the trust is being managed because of the fees and the membership fees and all that, and the fines involved. So they can kind of manage the whole program, but only because there were conflicts within the NGOs itself working for a similar cause. That was a challenge. We couldn't implement that program effectively.
Oh, it's between the NGOs.
Yes.
Good, good. Bez, you have implemented a lot of CSR initiatives. Is there anything that is very challenging but you have overcome it?
I can recollect a program where there was a lot of challenges in the particular community, and there were a lot of companies around that community, but there were a lot of issues in the community. There was a slum clearance board, and the IAS officer sits out of Chennai, and the particular community also falls under that particular district collector's administration. So now there was huge amount of waste till the neck level in each of the streets in the slum clearance board. People lost hope. They knocked on all the doors possible, but the waste was still there. Every day in and day out, people just walk into the communities and they have a stench, and the waste is still there. And there were a few companies just close by, but they couldn't do anything about it. It kind of irked me, because I'm always persuasive, I'm always humble. I try to do things in a way that bringing people together will always work. So now the waste is removed. We've got special permissions from the SEZ zones collector official, from the district collector, from the corporation commissioner, as well as the slum clearance board's IAS officer. So all of them came into the same page. We cleared up the waste. We had some programs around waste segregation for the community members. People there said they will not segregate waste, but then we had sensitized them, and we formed a resident welfare association, and there were a lot of issues like prostitution, drugs. So we had some programs around skilling for them, and we had a model school program for them. So children from that slum housing board will go and be part of the school, and the school also has got awards from the chief minister for the good programs that they are doing there. So a lot of programs revolved around that slum clearance board, and it has been effective. It has been successful, but what many corporates are actually feeling it as a challenge is that I also had a challenge initially, but being more persuasive and meeting the right stakeholders and getting things done it's actually achievable if you're being more persuasive and with the right mindset. Yeah.
How important do you think is communities involving in this process? If as an NGO, as a corporate, if we are doing these things, is different thing. If community themselves get involved, right? How important do you give for community participation in these kind of things?
I think that is the most important aspect. When we are creating a program, it shouldn't be that a corporate is sitting in a boardroom and just designing a program and saying to the NGO that please deliver this, come up with some impact metrics for this program. All the stakeholders should come together and co-create the program, even including the government. So government, communities, the NGOs, corporates, consultants who are involved in the social sector, and even if possible international organizations, grant organizations. So bringing all the stakeholders into a room and then talking about the challenges, talking about the problem statements, and then coming up with solutions for each of these problem statements, addressing it one by one. I think that would be a good approach, bringing stakeholders together. Especially the community members should be involved. Without them, if you create something, it's going to be a failure, for sure.
Yeah, that's proven, many programs like that.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, as you said, 10 years ago, when CSR started, all we're talking about CSR. Now it is ESG.
Yes.
Right? So everybody's talking about ESG. So why it is important for everybody to talk and execute things around ESG?
ESG is, to again abbreviate the term, environment, social governance, right? So the environment part covers the both the environment initiatives within the company and outside the company. Coca-Cola, for example, they are doing programs in terms of usage of water. They have to kind of bring in technologies that can minimize the usage of water, but still come up with a product. Similarly, outside the company, they had observing water from the ground. They have to create watershed programs or programs that can save water, conserve water. So both within the company, outside the company, the E aspect has to be covered. Not just water; it could be energy and so on. Now, all that comes under the E part of it. The S part of it covers CSR. Also involves labor, hiring employees locally. Like I said, Coca-Cola hire employees from the villages around for their bottling plant. That is a good practice. So aspects that has to do with employees within the company also falls under as part of it. So benefits for the employees and things like that. And governance should be very strong in terms of managing all this. ESG is an umbrella term and CSR is a part of ESG. Now the Western world and all the other countries globally are recognizing ESG, and there are a lot of frameworks that are being used by many companies to voluntarily report their initiatives. Now the common framework uses GRI, which many companies use it, and it is not mandatory to publish GRI reports, but companies voluntarily publish their reports, which covers the ESG part of it. Now, in India, this SEBI has announced that I think top 1,000 companies have to be listed companies have to use the BRSR framework, which has got the ESG part of it also covered. Initially, it was BRR.
Right.
Now it is BRSR, Business Responsibility Sustainability Report, which covers the ESG part of it. So it is similar to the GRI report, which is again a global reporting framework, which is used widely by many companies, both international and Indian companies. Now, in India itself, the government is kind of recognizing the ESG aspects. So companies are more aligned and going more impact driven and more data driven now.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. That's good to know. So now, when you are designing, implementing, or evaluating a CSR initiative, what are the principles that guide you to make your decision?
So while coming up with a program, first from a company point of view, we have to create a CSR strategy, and that has to be aligned with the CSR board, with their approvals, and then we have to create a CSR roadmap as part of the strategy. It could be a 5-year roadmap, and initially we were doing programs like activity driven. It could be 1-year programs, but now companies have creating programs that are long duration programs, where they work with a particular NGO or a community for a long duration of time, and as per compliance, it is 3 plus 1 years. We can have an on long-term program for 3 years plus 1 year, and we exit from the program. So about impact, I think while creating programs, companies have to have that in mind. So the strategy is first prepared, and the core thematic areas are designed, and each thematic area there is going to be a problem statement for each thematic area, and to address that problem, it cannot be addressed in just 1 year's time or 2 years' time. Companies are now thinking from a long-term perspective. They work on programs for 3 plus 1 years now, and initially it was just one-time programs. Now it is kind of long duration programs,
Right.
where it is piloted and then it is scaled up across locations, and in some cases the government also adopts those models because they don't have the bandwidth to do certain programs, and also prove to other companies that this model is achievable and it can be scaled up and expanded across. So impact should be first. All of them should be on board, the company as well as the NGO and the communities, that this is the problem statement that we're going to address, and to achieve this, all of us have to be on board and work towards that particular problem statement and achieve the solution, get the solution in a particular period of time. Not just complete the program, but exit in a sustainable way. Sustainable exit is important while we're designing the programs.
Right. So ultimately, impact is the
Yes.
objective of everybody. When you are working with implementing partners, I think you worked in different companies as CSR head, and you have worked with a lot of implementing organizations. So what are the key things that you look when you are making partnerships with implementing organizations like NGOs, and what are the things which are making the partnerships fail between the corporates and the CSR?
Trust is the most important factor. But to build that trust, we initially onboard them. We do a thorough due diligence as per the compliance. We check all your ATG, 12A, documentations, CSR form on all the mandatory documents, and we also check the good to have documents. So when all that is in place, we also get references by other donors for the NGOs. Then we build a little bit more confidence on them. But after working with the partner for a year or two, we understand their work, we understand their pain points. We try to help them wherever there is a gap. For example, if there is a technology that they want that can improve their impact measurement tools, efficiency in terms of work, we try to pitch in there through our volunteers who are experts in technology. We respect them, and that's how the relationship works. Because it has to be a win-win for both. It is not. It's not like we are the bosses and NGOs are the employees or something like that. We are partners working towards a particular problem statement, and both of us are owners of the program. If we treat the partner like that, I think they also gain the respect and trust, and we can work together and achieve impact that we intend to.
Bez, I think you have worked about 4 years in the NGO implementing organizations, and now you're in the corporate. When I'm interacting with a lot of corporate CSR heads, one of the main problems they say is, we see a lot of NGOs are very committed, but there is a competency gaps in terms of designing the programs, monitoring the programs, evaluating, reporting the quality that corporates are expecting, because corporates need to report to their stakeholders. Yes. There is a gap, and corporates feel little, discomfort working with NGOs who do not have the required competencies. They have required commitment, but the competencies which companies are expecting, not every good NGO have it. How important it is corporates to look at these gaps and fund to build the capability. Yes, you are spending 10 crores, 15 crores, 100 crores in the projects. Why not corporates take it a priority to build the capacity of their implementing partners by allocating some grants? How important it is for you? Do you agree this is required? And why not companies take this as a priority also? Because the partners can magnify the impact if they are competent. So instead of spending money on projects, crores, why don't you spend a certain percentage on building the capability of the NGOs? So how do you look into this?
Companies are looking at NGOs that can work at scale. However, the companies also are aware that there are grassroots NGOs who has a gap in their capacity building in terms of delivering programs. Their passion is there, but in terms of effective reporting, in terms of effective impact measurement tools, there is a gap, there's a lag. In terms of technologies also. So companies can come forward to actually help those NGOs build their capacities. And there are a lot of ways where we can build their capacities. It could be through our employees, volunteers, or it could be bringing together all the NGO partners together into a room, bringing an expert trainer on certain topics. It could be communications, media, impact measurement tools, or it could be fundraising, things like that. Proper documentation, due diligence in terms of the complaints, all that. They can also apply for different like Give Star and Give India and those kind of recognition, so that the credibility improves and enhances. I think companies are now a little open to also work with grassroots NGOs. Initially, it will be easy for them to work with NGOs that are bigger because they have the capability to expand, scale across India. But grassroots NGOs only work in a particular location for a long duration of time. So it will also be good to work with the grassroots NGOs and build their capacity across wherever they work. So the companies are working in a particular location, they have to look at both grassroots and good NGOs. So it can balance both so that the impact is achieved in the end of the day. The communities are benefited.
So you are recommending corporates or any donor to seriously think about funding capacity building of their implementing partners?
Yes, absolutely.
So do you think it's an expense or investment?
I think it is an investment because End of the day, if the NGO is able to do proper documentation or their processes are improving, then it is going to benefit the companies also who are investing in that.
Community and the company.
Yes.
So one more thing, many NGOs are implementing traditional programs, same program for long time. Yes, it's relevant, they can still continue. But, companies always want to listen about innovation. So how important it is, NGOs, to think about innovative programs so that they can attract better funding. Is that real? Are companies really looking for innovations?
Yes, many companies that I'm aware of are investing in terms of research, in terms of innovations, and uh, I think one of the programs that I remember is a partner was working only on skilling programs. There was a recommendation by the company to the partner to work on something innovative, and they were working on a skilling program for persons with disabilities. The recommendation was that why don't we introduce assistive technologies for them. So there were assistive technologies module created, and then now it is introduced for their skilling batches across India, and whichever company funds the NGO, they will go through the assistive technologies module. This is going to benefit the PWD youth across India. If it was a regular skilling program, they would have just got trained and placed.
Right.
But the assistive technologies, once they're sensitized on using the assistive technology, it will enhance their quality of life. It will make their jobs easier. So innovation is very important. It could be any thematic area. It could be environment or education or health. Introducing innovations is very important. And companies can invest, and I will be happy to invest in it.
Invest in
Yes.
innovations.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
good. That's good to know. Yeah. So, in the next 10 years, what do you think will be the major shifts in the development sector, in the CSR or in the ESG, where we need to get prepared for those things?
I think being in the CSR space for about 10 plus years now, there's always been a change in terms of amendments, in terms of the act. And the government also is very proud. Only in India it is mandate that companies have to spend 2% of their profits for a cause. And companies are also doing this very diligently. Before the CSR Act came in, many companies were voluntarily doing good to the communities. It could be Tatas and big companies like that. They had their own foundations where they were doing CSR programs or social programs for their communities that will benefit their communities. Now, I think giving back to the communities will not change. It is going to be there. Probably in the next 10 years, what I foresee is that we'll be helping the government in terms of innovations, in terms of new scalable programs, and in terms of technologies. So while we create more pilot models and help the government understand that this is workable, the governments will kind of take it up, and again companies will come together. I feel that there will be a lot of collaboration that will be happening. Like-minded companies will come together and solve a bigger problem, which again the government is also doing their bit. So there are gaps which through companies and through NGOs and through all stakeholders coming together, we can co-create, collaborate with different companies and build bigger programs that can solve bigger problems.
So when you say now that you are going to support government with innovative projects so that government can scale it up, so which means, what I asked before, are companies really looking at innovations? So if NGOs can innovate something, corporate can fund it,
Absolutely.
and then ultimately government can take it up as a scalable program.
Yes.
So there is very big need to innovate programs by NGOs.
Yes.
Good.
So end of the day, the problems that are there shouldn't be there. Like NGOs who are starting an old age home. The idea is not to start an old age home and get more people. The idea is to have the elderly people at their homes itself and not send them to the old age homes. So having more old age homes is not the solution. So we have to come up with solutions that are more innovative in nature. There are more technologies involved. It should solve a bigger problem where it shouldn't exist. Basically, the problem statements that are there currently shouldn't exist. Should come together and try to solve it.
Right.
Yeah.
Good, Bez. Thank you so much. I'm very sure the kind of journey you had and all your experiences that you have shared today is definitely inspiring to all our audience. And I really thank you for being with us today. And we will connect again sometime soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me here.
Good.